Hey all, happy Saturday! As is the tradition here, I'm going to be talking about an episode of a superhero animated series, and today I will be talking about the Batman the Animated Series episode Mudslide. If you don't want to be spoiled, turn this video off right now, and if you don't mind the spoilers, then you're in luck because there's going to be a lot of that. And now, before I get into the review itself, allow me to quickly sum up the plot of the episode. Matt Hagen, Clayface, who we haven't seen since his two-part origin episode Feet of Clay, is stealing stuff, and Batman tries to stop him. Along with Batman, we eventually find out that he is unstable and is falling apart. Hagen has allied himself with a doctor who is clearly in love with him, and she soon finds a way that Hagen can be fully restored to his human self if he steals an important element that is kept at a Wayne Enterprises location. Batman tries to stop the process from continuing, and Clayface attempts to kill Batman, but it goes awry when Clayface falls in the ocean, seemingly killing him. Cue credits. I mentioned before that Clayface, like Two-Face and Mr. Freeze, is one of the characters this series wants us to feel sorry for. He didn't want to be embroiled in an evil mobster's schemes that deformed him into a creature that terrifies people who look at him. And even in this episode, he isn't actively seeking to do any harm to anyone until Batman stops the process of turning him back into a human. His motives in this episode are pretty understandable, and I honestly think he is the most justified in what he is doing out of all of the villains and their schemes that we have seen in this series so far. Of course, it is a little strange that Hagen so vehemently refuses Batman's help in turning him back into a human, but it's no more strange than Batman stopping the process that will turn Hagen back into a human near the end of the episode. This was easily the worst part of the episode because it just felt so out of character for Batman. Batman is a force against crime, yes, but he is also a force of compassion. Stepping out of the show for a moment, take a look at Grant Morrison's Batman run. We see that Batman does not take a hard stance against the prostitutes of the city. He offers them a job at Wayne Enterprises because, yeah, he knows that they're committing crime, but they're doing it out of desperation. That's basically the same situation that Matt Hagen is in here, and yet Batman acts entirely contrary to how you would think that he would. Yes, Hagen stole from innocence, but like the prostitutes, it was out of desperation, and not because he intended harm to anyone. As I said, it is a little strange that Hagen rejects Batman's offer to help him, but judging by how Batman acts in this episode, I'd say that Hagen was scared that, yeah, Batman would try to cure him, but he would also want to send him to jail. And like I said, Hagen is probably the one character in this series who really doesn't deserve jail time for what he's done. After Batman pulls his exceedingly jerk move at the end when he stops the process of curing Hagen, or is it just to give him back control over his powers? I'll admit that the episode is a little vague on what they were trying to do. Hagen does try to murder Batman, and I know Batman is the hero of the episode, but I have to say, son, you had that coming. You offered to help cure Hagen, so why on earth are you now trying to stop that very thing from happening? But I digress, I've talked too much about that point already. When I saw that Hagen had a female confidant and ally in this episode, I was very certain that we were going to have a similar situation to what went down in the Batman Beyond episode Meltdown. That episode had an evil doctor pretending to help Mr. Freeze and betraying him, and since this series does want us to feel bad for Hagen, I was certain that that was where we were going here, but I was pleasantly surprised that that wasn't the direction that this episode went. I do think the part where Hagen's doctor friend was watching the old movie that he was in was the hokiest, corniest thing this series has ever done, period. Then again, that could have been by design, and it was meant to be a corny, hokey movie that she is watching, and not a corny, hokey moment in this series. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about Hagen immediately repeating the hokey line to her after he smashes the TV. It does feel a little more heartfelt than what was going on in the movie, but on the other hand, it still is pretty hokey. One thing I was a little unsure of is what exactly has Hagen been doing this entire time since Feet of Clay? I know there really isn't any continuity between episodes in this series, so it could have been a few weeks since Clayface's origin, or it could have been 3 years. With how fast and loose episodes like Almost Got 'Em and Birds of a Feather play things, I tend to think it's been at least a couple of years since Clayface's origin. So again, what has he been up to this entire time? Has he just been laying low? With how much he clearly loves acting, maybe he was taking small parts in plays, at least until his powers started to fail him. Or has he been stealing on a pretty regular basis since Feet of Clay, and it's only been recently that he's been stealing to sustain the process of keeping him alive? This isn't a huge deal, but it is something that I would have liked to have known, and it's another one of those times that it is really frustrating that this series does not have more of a linear continuity that references past events. This is really all I had to say about the episode. Like Feet of Clay, it is pretty good, But a lot of my enjoyment was deflated near the end when Batman inexplicably stops the cure for Clayface. Of course, it has to happen so that the episode can conclude, but it is done in a horrible way. Other than that, I quite like this episode. What about you guys? Like it? Hate it? What about my review? If you liked it, then next weekend I'll be talking about an episode of Batman Beyond, and the weekend after that, I'll be returning to another episode of Batman the Animated Series. And if you did like my review, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to see what other kinds of videos I do during the week. In the meantime, I'll catch you guys later. Have a great rest of the day.